If you're an author or plan to be one, get excited because this podcast is for you. Book Marketing Mentors is the only podcast dedicated to helping you successfully market and sell your book. If you're ready for empowering conversations with successful marketing mavens, then grab a coffee or tea and listen in to your host, international best-selling author Susan Friedman.
Welcome to Book Marketing Mentors, the weekly podcast where you learn proven strategies, tools, ideas, and tips from the masters. Every week, I introduce you to a marketing master who will share their expertise to help you market and sell more books. Today, my special guest is Melanie Herschorn. Melanie wants to make your book and brand sparkle online. As a content marketing strategist for coaches and speakers worldwide, she's on a mission to support and empower her clients to create clear messaging and content that shines in a light on their individual experience, skill set, and books. With her unique combination of entrepreneurship, award-winning journalism, and PR experience, Melanie guides her clients to attract and nurture leads and positions themselves as industry experts. I love it. Melanie, what a pleasure it is to welcome you to the show. And thank you for being this week's guest expert and mentor.
Thank you so much, Susan. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, Melanie, you and I are singing out of the same hymn book, looking at helping authors become authorities and shining in their brilliance. And I know that what you love to do with them is that whole aspect of content marketing. I love it. So let's talk about that. And let's just start off with, why do you feel authors need to sort of do content marketing? Because it's so key to them becoming authorities, thought leaders in their field. So take it away. Tell us.
Well, let me ask you this question. Have you ever planned a party, hired the best caterer, gotten some amazing flowers, chosen an amazing menu, and the venue is fantastic, and then you just didn't send out any invitations?
Well, that would be an interesting thing to do.
That would be a waste of your time and money, right?
It would absolutely be a total waste of your time and money.
It's the same thing when an author spends all this time and effort and money and writes and publishes a book, and then they don't ever tell anyone about their book other than, hey, I wrote a book. That is basically the content marketing, is those invitations.
I love that. Keep going. I think I stood on your toes there.
Not at all. What it does is it allows people to get to know you, get to like you, get to trust you as an authority in your space. And without content, people are not going to know who you are, and they're certainly not going to buy the book. Right? We have so much noise coming at us on a daily basis. I mean, I know I wake up every morning with at least, 150 to 200 emails waiting for me across my 7 email addresses. And it's a lot. It's enough to make your head spin. And so how do you stand out in that crowded space? Well, that's with your content marketing.
That's an excellent point, because I'm just going to ask you exactly. You've got all these emails, you're trying to stand out. The next question is, what is the best way, or where is the best place for you to actually stand out with your content?
Ooh, I love that question, Susan. Okay. It really depends on who you are, what your mission is, and what your book's about, and who your ideal reader is. Because wherever your ideal reader is hanging out online, that's where you want to be. So, for example, I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and he was telling me that he helps people decipher their dreams, and that he has been hanging out on Instagram. And I said, that's great, but I don't know that your reader is on Instagram. They're probably on Facebook. So you have to be judicious where you are spending your time online. if your ideal reader is not on the platform that you're pouring your heart and soul into, then you're just wasting your time. But no matter what, no matter where these people are online, I am such a proponent of email marketing because we are just parking our cars on the metaverse parking lot. We do not own our social media followers. If you really want to always have control, then you have to have people's email addresses. There was this fateful day back in October 2021 when everybody woke up and Instagram and Facebook were down for hours. And those of us with robust email subscriber lists were like, oh, that's no big deal. I'm just going to send an email to my list. I used that day to show people how important it is to truly have a robust email subscriber list, because that is how you get to reach people in the most intimate way.
I love that, because so true. I just remember that day and I was like, oh my goodness, all those people who are on Facebook are like, oh my goodness, what's happening? What's happening? What if I lose everybody? And that's what I tell my authors. If they say, oh, I say, well, how are you going to market the book? What's your plan? And they say, oh, I've got thousands of people on Facebook. And I was like, well, what happens if Facebook goes away? What happens to all those people? I mean, they're not going to suddenly give you all those people's names and email addresses. So you're building, like you rightly said, on rented land, and rather build a robust list under your own banner so that you can control that.
Absolutely.
So keep going in terms of this content. We're sending people an email with content. I mean, do you recommend tips? Do you recommend an article? And if it's an article, is it on your website? Is it on Medium or some other platform? What do you recommend?
Well, a lot of people will get lost if you start sending them elsewhere. I mean, basically, anytime you send an email or you post anything online, you have to remember that the person who's getting it or who's viewing it is thinking, what's in it for me? And you have a split second to get them hooked on what's in it for them. So if you're sending an email and it's got an article in it and you're sending them somewhere else to go read the article, chances are you're going to lose them before they even click the button because they don't want to work that hard. The more information that you can give just right in the email, the better. For example, let's say you write a blog post. Well, why don't you just copy and paste that blog post right into your email so people don't have to work so hard to read your content? Because I believe in the 80-20 rule, 80% value, 20% selling. That's not to say at the bottom of this amazing email that's filled with incredible value that you can't say, oh, and for even more great stuff, grab a copy of my book, click here to buy it. That's fine. But if you're going to really just do a sales email itself or a sales post, then I would recommend having at least 80% of what you are putting out there value to kind of establish you as an authority in your space. Because if you come out of the gate proposing on the first date, chances are people are going to say no.
Yeah, they don't want to be sold to.
No.
I know that there are people who send out emails on a regular basis, but it's full of interesting stuff, so people will open it. I mean, somebody like Seth Godin, for instance, he sends something out every single day, but it's good stuff. Sometimes it's a short couple of lines, sometimes it's a few paragraphs, but there's always substance in there.
Right.
And I mean, he sells stuff, obviously, he's got his workshops or he might recommend somebody else, but he's definitely showing off his expertise by sharing good content.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I can't speak for Seth Godin, obviously. He's a fantastic marketer and a prolific author, but he's being judicious about what he sends out. He knows that if he starts hammering people with, buy this new book, buy my purple cow, buy this, buy that, he's going to lose people. And he's a big name. So when you're just starting out and you're trying to establish your thought leadership online, you're trying to establish your influencer status, you really have to show people I know what I'm talking about. Here's how I can help you. And really make it about them and not really about you at all.
Yes, I love it when exactly that. You're speaking to them. I know your issues. I know some of the pain you might be going through or where you might need help because I've been there. Yes. Now, you talked about earlier grabbing people's or encouraging people to give them their email address. Now, we need to offer them something in exchange for that email address. And some people call it a freebie, some people call it a lead magnet. And I often get asked, as I'm sure you do, well, what's a good giveaway item that would encourage people to give me part with their email address, because it's getting more and more precious. People are very judicious about who they give their email address to. So how would you answer that if somebody came to you with that question?
Well, I love that question. And yes, Susan, I get it all the time. In fact, I host masterclasses just on this topic. The truth is that the first chapter of your book is not a lead magnet. People don't want the first chapter of your book. They don't know who you are. Chances are the first chapter of your book isn't really going to help them in any way because it probably doesn't have the meat of what you've written. The first chapter of your book has to go away as a lead magnet. So putting my, stake in the ground there. But to answer the question specifically, what should your lead magnet be about? Your lead magnet has to be the start of the customer journey. So the very first thing that you can show somebody, you can give them a quick win, something they can do in 48 hours where they're going to go, oh, I implemented this. And hey, wait a second, I got something good out of this. This person really knows what they're talking about. I want to learn more about them. I'll give you an example of a life coach. So maybe there's a life coach and they've written a book about having work-life balance. Basically, that's what their book is about. But you've never heard of this life coach. And so how do you know that what they're saying has any value or validity? But maybe if they have a freebie that tells you how to have a very productive morning. So then you download the freebie, you test out their checklist for having a very productive morning, and lo and behold, wow, you've had a really productive morning. Then you say, wow, this life coach really knows what they're talking about. Oh, I want to read their book now because clearly they know how to help me have a productive morning. So obviously the next step is they're going to help me have work-life balance. It's that thing. You have to think about what comes before the book in the customer journey. That is what I would advise that person.
So in order to know that, I'm assuming there's got to be an element of research to find out what that customer journey would look like. Would that be correct?
Well, I mean, when I say customer journey, I mean, this is all in my brain, so I don't know how much research it involves. But when I look at, I guess this is part of my zone of genius. I can read a book, I can work with a client, and then I can tell them, here's the thing that comes before your book. Here's what your ideal reader, here's how they want to dip their toe into your pond, basically, how they can learn about you and get a success, a small success, a quick win, and then be interested to learn more.
That zone of genius, we need to tap into that. So, yes, you can look at that. And how could we, though, look at our own work? Because sometimes we're so close to it, we don't see the wood for the trees. But let's say we want to look at our own work more objectively so that we could potentially see, well, what would come before telling them everything that's in the book.
Exactly. So think of a quick win. Here, just throw out an idea of a book, and then we can sort of reverse engineer any kind of book, anyone that you have helped publish recently, maybe somebody.
So, yeah, I've got a young lady. She actually is an intuitive.
Ooh.
And she's in the process of finishing up a book called Free to Fly and allowing people to use their intuition in terms of how they run their life.
Okay.
It's her zone of genius.
Mm-hmm.
However, there's an element of it that she could teach people.
So
Does anything come to mind? I gave you a
absolutely.
tough one there.
Oh, no. It's not tough at all. So she's teaching people how to access their intuition to live a better life.
Correct.
Okay. So what would be the first step then? How do they know that she knows what she's talking about with regard to intuition? So maybe there is a 5-step process that can help them find their intuition. Maybe it's a meditation technique that she can provide, or it's 5 things that you can do today to access your intuition, even if you think you don't have any.
Cool. No, that really is. That's right on. And I think she's done challenges that tap into some of that. I mean, I'm a great proponent of tips, and you've already talked a little bit about tips or checklists. I mean, I feel people eat that kind of thing up, and it doesn't
100%.
have to be big. But I remember that when I was in the trade show industry, I put out tips all the time, and people love them.
It's true because, you don't want to overwhelm people. I mean, you're an expert, right? So you know everything about your topic. So then you want to fire hose people with all the information, and you kind of just have to dial it back. And you gave a great example of a former business, your former life in the trade show industry. And for me, my former life is as a journalist, where I would interview all sorts of people, politicians, professional, doctors, lawyers. And every single time I would have to say, okay, that was a great answer. Now repeat it again, but pretend that I'm 8 years old and tell me again. It's that necessity to streamline things, to make them easier, to just kind of, I don't want to say dumb things down, but in a way, dumb things down. It's necessary because people don't have a lot of time and they don't have a lot of bandwidth. And so the easier and simpler you can make something, the more likely you are to stand out.
Yes, and that's why, Wiley and Penguin have done so well with their For Dummies books and their For Idiots guides. And I've written for both of those. And it's exactly that. People want to know the basics. People suffer from this curse of knowledge, It's like, I know it, therefore I assume you know it as well, because, hey, it's so simple. I know how to do it. Therefore, you should know how to do it. And that drives me bananas when people say that.
Exactly. And so when you're coming up with your lead magnet, what could be like the little itty bitty taste that, you take yourself out of the equation? And what are people asking you all the time? Answer that question.
Yeah. And it's knowing that and paying attention to that, because I think sometimes we don't pay enough attention to those simple questions, those frequently asked questions that, as you rightly say, come up over and over again. So that is a big hint. Hey, ding, ding. Perhaps people want to know about that. The same question comes up over and over again. Yeah. So what are some of the biggest mistakes that you find, Melanie, that people make when they're looking to become a recognized authority in their field?
Ooh, love this question. Okay. So, biggest mistakes. The first one is that they go and hire a PR firm and they don't have even a viable website yet. They're not really anywhere to be found on social media. And they think that their PR firm is going to, well, they will. The PR firm will get them on the places they say they'll get them. But then there won't be book sales to follow because there is kind of almost a chain of command. If you don't really exist online, when people see you on Good Morning America and they head over to your website and there isn't much there, and then they've tried to find you on LinkedIn and you don't exist, they're not going to buy your book. They're going to be like, who is this person? I forget their name. Goodbye. So that's number one. You really need to have your platform online created before you then go and, see your name in lights. The second thing I would say is that a lot of authors who want to grow their influence will, they'll hire somebody to do their social media marketing, and you're a VA and a virtual assistant, and they'll be posting. And then I'll say, so what is your VA posting for you? Yeah, I don't know. Just things, just posting things. And well, I posted, so that counts, right? When you don't have a strategy, and I know you can speak to this, Susan, when you don't have a strategy for what you are putting out online, you are basically throwing the proverbial spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. And unfortunately, that's just wasting your time and your money. Your messaging has to be dialed in and resonating with your ideal reader.
Yeah, that's so key. I use that example all the time, the throwing the spaghetti against the wall, hoping some of it will stick. And one of the principles that I believe is it's not about selling the book.
Right.
Because if you're out there and you want to be recognized as a thought leader and an expert authority in your field, the book will sell, but it's not about the book. It's about you. You don't want to hide behind the book. And like you said, hiring a PR company or somebody else to do your stuff for you, your social media and your messaging, it just doesn't make sense because you're the one who has the passion for the book. If you don't have passion for your book, then you're wasting your time, because that's really what it's about. I believe your passion is what's contagious. Your passion is what's going to help you sell. What are your comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that ultimately the goal is to have somebody being able to post for you, but you have to create the foundation of it. And I think you need help with a strategy.
Yeah.
So I would say, yes, your passion, your mission, that is absolutely what will resonate with your audience. And keep going back to that. Like you said, not hiding behind the book, not saying, I wrote a book, buy it. Nobody cares. No offense. What they care about is why you wrote the book, why you feel empowered to put that out there in the world, and how you want to make this world a better place. And I mean, that's why I do what I do every day, is because I'm helping authors amplify their mission. And that's how I, in my small way, make this world a better place.
Yeah, it's the value. I think you say that so beautifully. It really is the value that you're bringing in that book. And obviously the value, a lot of it comes from your own experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people say to me, well, I had this experience and therefore I want to share it with other people. And I'm like, okay, but what are the lessons? What are people going to take away from it? And you said it earlier, what's in it for me? Because that's what people are interested in. How is it going to help me? And that's why I put this podcast together, because I want people to get something out of it. This is not Sue Friedman show, because I bring on experts like yourself who can share valuable tips and techniques, practical things that after somebody's listened to the episode, they can say, oh, I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that I can do, which is that small win, which you referred to earlier. This is a great segue, Melanie, to, you mentioned this is what you do, how you help people. Talk about your services and how people can get in touch with you.
Thank you. Well, my goal, my mission is really to help authors grow their influence so that whatever is driving them, whatever their passion is, can sort of spread out and have a ripple effect in the world. And the way I work with clients is one-on-one, and we create an entire marketing strategy for their book and their brand. And we start with messaging, and we work on their social media, their lead magnets, their email marketing, podcast guesting, and launching campaign strategies. Because I feel like things don't exist in a vacuum. And yes, you have a book, and that's wonderful, but you are the face of your brand. Just like you said, you can't hide behind your book. You are the face of your brand, and you are an author, and you are a thought leader. that's my mission, is to be the marketing support and the cheerleader. And I was saying to a client the other day that part of my job description is to play devil's advocate. it's fun to help you craft a message that is really going to resonate. And really, when you think about what does it mean for your dreams as an author to come true, that's kind of what I'm aiming for.
That's beautiful. That really is. And what comes up for me often, and I have a feeling that you encounter this as well, is that people feel that they are an imposter, that they're a fraud doing this. How do you deal with that?
I had a client who didn't want to post any pictures of herself. She thought that it was narcissistic. And I sat with her and I coached her through it. And I explained, people want to see pictures of you. They want to see your face. They want to know you. Humans just prefer pictures of people to pictures of things. And so we worked through it. And now she's posting pictures of herself all the time and growing her audience on Instagram and her influence entirely. Yeah, it all gets rolled up into that. Am I really an expert? I mean, I wrote a book, but what if people actually read the book? And I'm there to say, first of all, I read the book before other people get to read the book, which is just one of the perks of my job. I am blown away every time by the work that I get to read. When a person sits down to write a nonfiction book, it's their heart and soul. I want people to remember that even though you may feel like an imposter, you truly have a unique experience that nobody else in the entire world has. It took me a long time to realize it. I would look back and say, well, what makes me so special? And then I thought, oh, well, what makes me different is I've got a background in PR. I've got a background in journalism. I've got a background as an entrepreneur. I manufactured clothing. I also did marketing all that time. Wait, maybe that gives me a special lens through which I can do this. I think that sometimes people just need to sit down with somebody and, tell them what their life story is, and then have somebody sort of reflect it back at you to show you that you're doing amazing things. And guess what? You wrote a book too, which makes you an expert.
Oh, that's so beautiful. As I mentioned to you before we started this interview, that we always like to leave our listeners with a golden nugget. I'm going to have you piggyback on that. And I also, before we go there, I know that you've got a special something that you're going to share with our premium members. So we'll go into our premium member studio right after this. But before we do that, and as we wrap this up so nicely and put a little bow on it, Melanie, your golden nugget, what's the one takeaway that you would like to leave our listeners with?
I think that people work so hard to create a book, to birth a book. It can take 9 months. It can take less time. It can even take longer. It can take years. But just like when you birth a baby, you don't just walk away and let the baby raise itself. You have to raise the book too. And that is what the marketing of your book does for you. It helps raise the book and helps you grow your influence. It becomes sort of not just about the book anymore, because you can take that book and you can make that as the basis of a program. You can leverage it so that you're speaking on stages. The sky truly is the limit. So don't just stop when the book is done. That's when you need to ramp up and really get started.
Wow. You're speaking my language. You really are. I'm like, oh my goodness, she's saying my words. I'm like, it's beautiful. I love it. Yes, you're so right. I mean, writing the book is one thing, but it's not the end. It's not a destination. It's just the beginning of the journey. Melanie, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. And thank you all for taking time out of your precious day to listen to this interview. And I sincerely hope that it sparks some ideas you can use to sell more books. Here's wishing you much book and author marketing success.
The time is now to take action and finally build your book-selling empire. And the great news is that Susan is here to help you. Visit bookmarketingmentors.com and sign up for a free 15-minute book marketing strategy session with Susan. She'll help you discover your first steps to marketing and selling your book. Only those who take action are rewarded, so visit bookmarketingmentors.com, and we'll see you again next week.